Your job is to cut through the noise. To succeed, you need to reach out to your target audiences in real time with messages that speak to them. You can't let technology get in the way of your brand. That's the spirit. First Spirit is a powerful solution that helps you effectively communicate and engage with your target audience. Get an awesome ROI. Success in the market means your message got through to the right people at the right time in the right way. And that's why you need First Spirit. Get started with digital marketing. Visit www.espirit.com now.
Hello, everybody. I'm Butch Stearns.
And I'm Pelz-Sharpe.
And welcome to CMS-Connected, the web content management industry's only news commentary show. Alan, great to have you here.
Very happy to be back.
Yeah, Scott Lewer will not make this episode, and you're filling some very big shoes.
Huge.
Well, we're excited to have you here for a lot of reasons. First of all, the subject of today's show. We're going to look back at what's going on in the CMS industry in 2015, and we're going to make some predictions for 2016. As a matter of background, a little bit about you. I think people in the industry know you. I think most of them like you.
I'm not sure about that, but certainly quite a lot of them do know me. I've been around the block a few times, Butch. So yeah, I've been an analyst a long time covering this space, very different angles on it at various different times. So hopefully I know something about what we're talking about today. Yeah.
To sum it up, we'll dive right into this in more detail in a second. As we sit here at the turn of a year, right, and we head into a new year for the CMS industry, paint a brief picture of where we're at.
Oh, I'll give you one word: consolidation. Yeah, 2015 was a pivotal year for our industry. I think we're going to look back on it as the year, well, not just CMS, but the tech industry as a whole really started to consolidate and get its act together.
Okay, so we're going to dive into predictions for 2016 and recap 2015. Also coming up in this show, Amy Martyn in our Vendor Spotlight segment on this edition will be reviewing Sitefinity. And before we begin, I would like to acknowledge our lead sponsors as always. They are Falcon-Software. Falcon-Software is a digital experience agency that can provide you with the expert advice and integration solutions for all your creative design, content management, digital marketing, and e-commerce, social or mobile needs. And Digital Clarity Group, DCG, is a research and advisory firm focused on navigating organizations through the digital transformation process, and that process is ongoing, as Alan said. So let's dive right into it. So as we head into 2016, some of the subjects we're going to talk about are mergers and acquisitions. We're going to talk about the decline of some of the bigger companies and what some of the bigger players are doing in the industry when it comes to consolidation and what you're saying, as well as some of the big news that happened and big data and the Internet of Things. So let's dive right into it, Alan, and let's talk about two major CMS industry acquisitions in 2015. One of them was Episerver and the merger with Ectron. But, you know, to be completely accurate, that happened at the very end of 2014. But there were a lot of repercussions with this merger for 2015. What were they?
Oh my gosh, I think there were a lot of repercussions, as you say. I think the big one was, frankly, in terms of money, about valuations. They got a pretty decent valuation, and at the time, I think a lot of people were saying, oh my God, they've been undersold. No, guys, that's what these companies are worth today. So they did okay, but I mean, that has now set the tone, right? So anybody else who's out there looking for a buyer, people who are looking out there to buy, they know what the price range is now. So that's pretty sobering for a lot of people in this sector.
So when it comes to the industry, if you're out there, as you've always been, looking for acquisitions or looking to merge with someone or looking to be bought up, I think that the lesson you're saying here is that 2015 taught us that you may not be worth as much as you think you are.
Absolutely. I mean, 2015, just to be clear, was the biggest year for tech M&A, as far as I'm aware, that we've ever had, but certainly going right back to the dot-com era. And yeah, there's more. And why? Because there's bargains out there. People are spending, they're buying. These things are affordable for once.
So let's talk about another merger, and that was Dell's $67 billion takeover bid of EMC. What's the big news out of that?
Well, of course, that's the one that completely contradicts me, because that really was a high price, right?
Right.
$63 billion, $63,000 million. Can you imagine that? Right? It's crazy. No, I mean, that's huge for our industry. I mean, you know, within EMC, there is that company called Documentum. You know, it's not really a company, but that division in there called Documentum, which I think just everybody's heard of, right? People who don't even know our sector, they've probably heard of Documentum. It's just that name. So what's going to happen to them? Are they going to now spin off by themselves? You know, what's going to happen to them? And again, that's one of those things. What is happening? It's consolidation. Is there a role for these people anymore? You know, do they need to be part of a bigger story? So I think the Dell EMC thing, fascinating, a very high risk acquisition, merger if you want, because it's really closer to a merger, I think, than an acquisition. I think we're going to see that one play out over the years. It's just too big to know at this point what something like that is really going to...
You said that 2015 was the biggest year for M&E in the CMS space. What other mergers or acquisitions do you want to point out that had a significant effect on the industry, or will? I don't want to tease. Let's tease what's coming up in 2016. Right. But what other acquisitions are noteworthy that, in your opinion?
Well, I think there was a bunch. I mean, particularly if we look at the broader digital marketing discussion. I mean, Oracle continued to buy up companies. Salesforce made a couple of acquisitions. Sprinkler, you know, just a startup itself a few years ago, started to buy. And then on the file sync and share world, which is sort of adjacent, but nevertheless, you know, still part of our world, content management. We saw the start there of things tidying up too. Autotask bought Sooner. There was a number of acquisitions there, but there was also in the document management world, I think the big one there was Lexmark buying Kofax. I mean, all of these players who were at each other's throats, they're all trying to find a home and find people to be friendly with.
We mentioned Dell and EMC, two major players, right?
Yeah.
Let's talk about two other major players. And again, we'll talk more about this in 2016 when we look ahead. Yeah. But Adobe and Microsoft, clearly what they do has an effect on a lot of industries. But when it comes to the CMS industry, what did they do in 2015? And again, tease us what they might be thinking for 2016.
Well, you make a very good point. These two are... I wouldn't say they're the biggest, the most important, but they're certainly up there, right? I mean, Adobe, I tell you what they did well. They made a lot of money. I mean, you know, they made a lot of money. This is a very profitable company. They've proven this model, if that makes sense. You know, they have said, look, we can pull this together. We can make money, so why can't you? Now, I say that because a lot of people are not making money. All right, they're spending a lot of marketing, but you know they're a long way off profitability. So Adobe's really set a bar there. Microsoft's going to respond. They've got to, right? And my prediction for 2016, and watch me be proven wrong in 2017, but I'm pretty sure Microsoft is in the market to buy a web content management company and probably some other smaller bolt-ons in the digital marketing space. Of course, they have the resources to build their own, but again, come back to what I said earlier, why bother? There's some bargains out there, some great tools to buy at a good price.
Alan Pelz-Sharpe of Digital Clarity Group is joining us on this edition of CMS Connected. We're talking about recapping 2015 in the CMS industry and looking ahead to 2016. We talked about major mergers and acquisitions in 15. Let's also talk about Gartner, because Gartner's Magic Quadrant sets the tone often for the entire year, and people always refer to it. We mentioned Adobe, but probably the big news out of Gartner's 2015 quadrant was Sitecore, according to Gartner, taking over the top spot of Adobe.
Yeah, I mean, this is a red rag to a bull, really, the Gartner Magic Quadrant. I mean, let me first of all say, as you always say just before you go and attack something, I have great respect for the people at Gartner. I actually know many of these people personally.
Which means you have no respect.
No, I do. I actually genuinely do. But what is the Magic Quadrant? I don't quite get it, okay? I mean, if you are going to buy technology, why are you looking at that? That's not going to help you, okay? It's not going to help you. But, you know, for industry insiders like ourselves, it's a great tool. We look at that and we say, okay, who's doing well, who's not, right? It's not a buyer's tool. Absolutely, clearly not. Sitecore's been doing well the last few years. Why not? But, what's the metrics for this? I don't really get it.
All right, so let me stop you for a second. Because, no, it's fair to question where it comes up. But let's be honest. It is the Gartner Magic Quadrant is, if it's not the gold standard, it is definitely referred to
it's
in
the gold standard.
Okay.
It absolutely is.
So if it's not a buyer's tool, right? Let's talk about what it is. And again, let's look at 2015. Yeah. So what's significant is it that Gartner's Magic Quadrant named Sitecore to take over for Adobe? What repercussions did that have in the industry?
Well, if we're being really honest, not many repercussions. Okay, I mean, I think for Sitecore, that's fantastic. Right? I mean, what an endorsement. That's a fantastic thing. I mean, if we look at Adobe's numbers and their trajectory, it would seem that nobody's really taken any notice. So again, I think we just have to be real about this. With the Magic Quadrant, by the way, I'm going to contradict myself now. It shouldn't be a buyer's tool. Is it? Yes. Okay. Right? People do say, I will have the top 4 out of the Magic Quadrant on my shortlist. That's not a good way of doing it, folks. But anyway, so for Sitecore, that is going to bring in more business for them. I mean, it's just a great thing, and many would kill for it. For somebody like Adobe or an Oracle or a Microsoft or an IBM, they don't really care that much.
So let's talk about, before we let the Magic Quadrant go, some of the other companies who were movers or shakers in it last year. Acquia, SDL, those are 2 companies that have always been on a rocket ship heading in a direction. And it was a big year for Acquia, wasn't it?
It was a very big year for Acquia, and for the release of Drupal 8 there. I mean, this was huge. That could have really gone very badly wrong for them. I mean, they've been waiting. That's been, in preparation, ready for launch, whatever, for a long, long time. It opens a lot of doors for Acquia to go out there and get some more business in, and it also keeps them on the map. But, I mean, the reality is in our CMS world, talking about consolidation, you're right. I mean, it's the same players. It's SDL, it's Acquia, it's Episervice / Electron, right? And I mean, people like Hippo are still around, but we've got hundreds of people in this space, but now we're starting to consolidate around probably, 10?
And also with the Magic Quadrant, we started this whole look back at 2015 with the Electron Episerver merger. They both, for whatever it's worth, in the 2015 Gartner Magic Quadrant, went from the visionaries categories and squeaked in as the leaders. What do you make of both of them squeaking into the leaders category in the Magic Quadrant after the merger between the 2 of them?
Yeah, well, again, where somebody gets placed is indeed magical, right? It's a mystery to all of us. We're not quite sure how it works. But, I mean, I think, to be fair, I think they're 2 decent companies. They're now owned by, a firm that wants to make something of this. There's probably going to be some more acquisitions coming into it. I think it's a pretty positive story, all in all. Whereas you had 2 lonely people out there try and do the best they could. They've got some money now. They've got some friends.
So now that you've finished ripping apart Gartner's Magic Quadrant, I mean, you grew up in England, right?
I did grow up.
Didn't they tell you when you looked into the sausage, don't look behind the doors in the factory?
We are probably the last warring nation. The polite veneer is literally that. It's a veneer.
Yeah, you're dispelling all of that about the English. All right, let's go to some other news for 2015. We're recapping 2015 in the CMS industry with Alan Pelz-Sharpe of Digital Clarity Group on this edition of CMS Connected. We thank you for being a part of it. Enterprise content management, the ECM market, is expected to grow from $24.6 billion in US dollars to $59 billion by 2020. What do you make of that trend, that news that came out, that ECM is about to grow so exponentially?
I don't believe a word of that.
Okay.
I think that number is just spectacular. How you get to a number like that, I do not know. I mean, I literally do not know. Now, my career has been very much closely associated with ECM, and full disclosure, I'm on the board of AIM, which is the industry organization which represents this sector. Look, ECM is not going away. It will continue to grow. There is a need for it. But again, I mean, it's an industry that's having some tough times. People like Box and Dropbox have come along and said, hey, look, we can do that same thing really, really cheap. Thanks, guys. I mean, it's going through a period of consolidation as well. I mentioned Kofax, Lexmark. There's a lot of M&A activity there. Again, is it going away? No. Is it a big industry? Yes. Will it continue to grow? Yes. But I don't know how you get to numbers as big as that. Well, that just seems a little bit.
So market research came out in 2015. There were many articles about this, and let me just read from part of it. The major forces driving the market, the ECM market size and the growth, are the growing need for content management solutions in organizations, the necessary requisite for streamlining business operations, and the rising trend to reduce the total cost of ownership through content management. I think you made a great point as we were preparing for this show that companies and organizations are not looking to buy a content management system necessarily. They're looking to solve problems, right? So does that point that you made, does that dispute, you think, the trend in ECM?
I think we just, does it dispute it? I'm not sure. But I mean, the point is here, if you're a traditional document management vendor, nobody's interested in you. It's not sexy, right? It's boring. It's about documents and scanning and stuff like that. Well, guess what? I don't know about you, but everywhere I turn, you apply for a mortgage, you go to a bank, you know, your kid goes to a new school. Have you seen how much paperwork's involved? Like, there's business there. This is serious, solid business. It's not very exciting, okay? But to get to $50 billion, and again, I don't want to be disrespectful of this company. I just don't know how you get to such a big number, because that just seems a little off.
So those are hopeful.
I think they're very hopeful, but even so, people are still driving nice cars and doing well. All
right, so let's talk about some of the technology buzz that came out of 2015, or some of the terms. And two of the big ones are big data, which wasn't new in 2015, but took on a new meaning, and also IoT, the Internet of Things. So big data, first of all. What's changed with data, specifically in CMS for 2015? And again, I know it's hard not to get into predictions for 2016, but what changed with big data, or what was amplified with big data for 2015 in this industry?
You know, that's genuinely a tough one, because I think what has happened is there's an understanding now that there is a real thing called big data, depending on how you do that.
Tomato.
Whatever. But I mean, you know, there is a big world out there of petabytes of data that possibly have something amazing inside them, right? Most companies just don't deal with that. That's not the reality of them. What they want to do is mine what they actually have in their databases on their stored drives, you know? So I think there's a dose of reality has come into big data that, you know, yeah, maybe there's great insights to be had there, but the cost of getting them, is it really a good business case?
Well, to me, let me make a statement and tell me if you agree. When I look back at 2015, and I did not grow up in the industry like you did, but from sitting here with Scott and just learning from osmosis with all the conversations we had during the year, when it comes to big data, I see two big changes. One is there are no silos anymore between business data and personal data, because we all do business on our cell phones and our social channels and all that unstructured data and structured data. Those silos have been broken down. That's one trend that I've seen. So businesses need to adapt when it comes to that. The other thing that I've seen in the CMS industry is that, again, the silos, marketing, sales, customer service, you name it, all the different lines of business within your organization, the data needs to be consolidated. It needs to be in one repository for everybody to get to, which is almost an impossibility to get to, but it does need to be there, doesn't it? That has changed and will continue to change CMS systems exponentially, in my opinion. Am I right or wrong?
I think you're wrong. But no, I mean, I hear where you're coming from. I don't fundamentally disagree with you. I think the reality is it's really hard to do that.
Right.
I mean, you take two basic, simple databases and get them to talk to one another. It's a big job. And then suddenly you want all this data coming in from Twitter to make sense as well. It's hard. It's really hard to do. No, you're right in principle. That is exactly what people want to do. And I think mentally, people have made that step. It's all data, right? It's all data and we need to make sense of it. But getting there to that point where you can invest a bit of money and get something back, which is equal to more, if you like, right? You know, I invest $10, I want 20 back. If I'm not getting 20 back, I'm not doing it.
Right.
It's hard.
Right.
It's really hard, and I think we're going to see that pan out over the next 5 to 10 years.
So again, I think you make a great point. Whatever we can disagree about the trends and this and that, but you're talking about what we should really be looking at is why are you doing this, and what's the real value of you doing that?
That's my
because everybody wants a 360-degree view of the customer and have real-time data and create a real-time picture. But why? What's the value for
That's the great question. Why? Because those people who the big organizations out there, the Coca-Cola of this world, the Nikes of this world, they've invested huge. And don't get me wrong, I know they're smart people and they're doing smart stuff. But often you get that 360-degree view of the customer and you go, Right, and what do we do now, right? Yeah, I mean, so again, what questions do I need to ask? How does that translate back into the business? How do I generate more leads? How do I close more leads, right? Basic stuff, hard to do.
All right, so let's talk about the Internet of Things. First of all, for the CMS industry specifically, what's your definition of the Internet of Things and how it applies to the CMS industry?
You know, it's starting to apply to the CMS industry, but if we look at what the Internet of Things actually is, I mean, okay, it's literally what it says, yeah? So we have sensors, we have microchips, we have RFID tags, whatever it is. We've got something sending us data from objects, right? Wherever they are, be that a handset or a fridge, yeah? And everybody seems to refer to the fridge for whatever reason. We've got these intelligent fridges. I don't know why you need one, but whatever. That is a really big deal, apparently. So, I mean, again, you know, this is actually not that new, okay? We've actually had this stuff for a long time. People are now starting to find the business cases for it, right? So, I mean, I can remember back, I think about, seriously, literally about 15 years, where a major retailer was putting RFID tags into baseball caps and sweatshirts and stuff because they wanted to know where people went with these things. Well, you know what happened? They got flooded with data, they didn't know what to do with it, and it didn't help their business. So now we're getting to that point where people are making more intelligent decisions, right? So for the CMS world, you're right, it's a flood of new data telling us things about our customers, what they're doing with our products. And I don't think the CMS world really knows what to do with it yet.
We'll tease it for our 2016 predictions, but how has the ability to gather data, specifically from the car and the home, to mention two things, how has the Internet of Things changed the industry, if at all, for 2015, and tease us for what might be ahead in 2016?
At this point, I don't think it has, but I think it will, right? Okay. You know, I mean, so that technology has transformed the automobile industry, definitely, right? But if we look at the CMS industry, you know, we've got to catch up. We've got to catch up. We're not quite there yet.
Again, we are reviewing 2015 in the CMS industry. I'm Butch Stearns. He's Alan Pelz-Sharpe from Digital Clarity Group. We've been talking about trends in 2015. We're going to have our vendor spotlight coming up with Amy Martyn in just a little bit. She is going to look into Sitefinity, and then we'll be back to look at a look ahead to 2016. Let's finish the recap of 2015 with another buzz term, but it's not a buzz term. People have talked about it forever. Omni-channel digital experience. And what I find interesting about this when it comes to the CMS industry is that your platform, your service, your solution now needs to be customer-centric and addressed towards, and I'm speaking from a marketer's perspective, but it really needs to, again, align all your lines of business. No longer can the first interaction you have with a customer be with customer service and a complaint. It's in the research phase when customers are out there doing that. So I guess the question becomes, while companies in this industry pursue the holy grail of omni-channel digital experience across the full customer journey, what happened in 2015 to get us to that point? Or what are some of the things, the steps that happened in omni-channel digital experience that are changing the industry?
Well, I think what's changing is the way people think about it, as you described, right? There's a different perspective around the customer. So, I mean, I often talk about the digital supply chain, right? Because it's all well and good knowing something about the customer, but, you know, can I make something to demand? Can I actually get it to the store? Can I get it to their house? So, you know, there's a whole new way of thinking coming into our industry, front end to back end, the whole thing. Now, it started off in our world around the customer experience, but now we're realizing that's a limited view, right? Happy customers are great. Ones who spend a lot of money, they're even better. So, you know, how do I actually now go back, figure out what they want, build it in time, deliver it in time, get it, you know, etc., right? The whole supply chain. So I think what's actually happened in this past year has been that. There's been a flip in the way we think. There's a broader understanding of where we need to get to, and soberingly, the scale of the work ahead of us. It's hard.
So when it comes specifically to the industry, the CMS industry, how good a job or what steps did the industry take in providing a more comprehensive offering to get a complete digital experience around the customer?
Right.
Were there great strides made in 2015?
I don't know if there was great strides, but I think there were sensible strides. I mean, if we look at somebody like Oracle, they're building out a very comprehensive platform that touches the whole supply chain, right? So I think people are still building these things out, and I think it's a lot of work to get there. But yeah, I think there's people are building out very big data-centric type platforms. They'll take a little while to come into our industry. But I think actually there's a flip side to this. I think a lot of smaller vendors have realized you don't need to know everything that's on Twitter. You don't need to know everything on Facebook. You need to know about this, and I will give you this.
So I look at your recap of 2015 in this industry almost as a challenge. You painted a picture that it wasn't a great year for the industry. It wasn't a horrific year, but it's definitely a year of change. There'll be more consolidate. Well, I don't want to get into 2016 yet, but is that how you summed it up? I mean, this was a challenging year for the industry.
Very much so, but I think that's a good thing, right? I mean, we're 15 years post the dot-com era. It's time for you know, a good shake-up, and we've got a lot of new customers out there looking for you know, something different, right? Instead of the same old. So yeah, definitely a challenging year, but I think that's a good thing.
Alan Pelz-Sharpe of Digital Clarity Group is our co-host here on this edition of CMS Connected. We reviewed 2015. We will look ahead with Alan at 2016. But coming up next, Amy Martyn in the Vendor Spotlight segment will review Sitefinity. You are watching CMS Connected, the web content management industry's only news commentary show.
So you've got a great website. Your marketing team spends hours driving visitors to it and nurturing them into leads. And your sales team spends hours collecting, qualifying, organizing, and chasing those leads. Sales wants to focus on what they do best, selling, and marketing wants to get on with what they do best, creating innovative campaigns. But how do you make both teams happy? The solution is marketing automation.
Hello everybody, I'm Butch Stearns and welcome back to CMS Connected, the web content management industry's only news commentary show. Time now for our Vendor Spotlight segment, and for that segment, as always, we bring in Amy Martyn from Falcon-Software. Hello, Amy.
Hi, Butch. How are you?
I'm excellent. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks.
All right, so in our Spotlight segment here, Amy, today, we're going to be reviewing Telerik Sitefinity. So let me tell a little bit about the company without stealing your thunder. Sitefinity is a content management and customer analytics platform developed by Telerik with more than 130,000 customers from 60,000 organizations in 94 countries. Some of their customers include NASA, Chevron, Expedia, PepsiCo, Panasonic, and Roche. They've been serving their community of 1.7 million developers for more than a decade and boast 450 of the Fortune 500 as customers. So what else do we need to know about the history of the three companies, Telerik, Sitefinity, and Progress?
Yeah, so kind of how they all came together. It first started with Telerik. They started their company in 2002, and it was from 4 young men who just had a really bright idea in Sofia, Bulgaria. And it kind of morphed into them creating these RAD, Rapid Application Development Tools. And really, you know, the company just blew up and became one of the biggest technology companies in all of Bulgaria, with clients that expand all over the world. And then how Sitefinity came to play is Sitefinity is a product line of Telerik. They're a content management system, and they just came out with their last major release, 8.2, about a month ago or so. And then Progress. So Falcon-Software is a 30-year-old established software company, and they just acquired Telerik. So that's, you know, it's exciting for Telerik, the fact that they have now incorporated with such a large organization. Progress really was excited to purchase Telerik because of their background, their dev experience, and all their development tools, and what they've incorporated. But I don't think they really realized what they had with Sitefinity in the content management system. Now I think they're realizing that they're able to utilize Sitefinity and incorporate all Progress's tools and software into this platform. So it's interesting.
So Amy, Progress is a pretty large company, but let's talk a little bit more, tell us a little bit more about Telerik Sitefinity in the US marketplace.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Butch. So like you had said earlier, and telling us all the numbers about the company, at one point you had said they serve 1.7 million developers. That's a huge number. And I think the key word there is serves. You know, that's looking at all their partners, that's looking at all their connections, everyone that's using the platform, employees everywhere across the world. But if you're looking at just the US marketplace, they are sitting, if you're just looking at Telerik, for example, They're about 100 employees in the US. And same with Sitefinity, about 100 employees in the US. And they have offices in Waldorf, Massachusetts, Palo Alto, California, and Austin, Texas. And the thing that's interesting is that when you look at such an established company, Telerik Sitefinity, they've been around, it's like 14 years now. They really only have 3 companies that do training for the business end users, one of them being Falcon-Software. So it's interesting to see what's going to happen there with them now incorporating with Progress, and are they going to, come up with a full new infrastructure for their partners?
Amy Martyn of Falcon-Software. In this edition of the Vendor Spotlight of CMS-Connected, we're talking about Telerik Sitefinity. Amy, Sitefinity's broken out into 2 parts, correct?
Yep, that's correct. So the first part is the CMS, and the second part is the DEC, the Digital Experience Cloud. And the CMS can be put behind a firewall. It can be deployed in a private and public cloud. And the DEC can be incorporated, obviously, within the Sitefinity CMS, because they work very nicely together, but also can be deployed in any other website. And the DEC is really a way to gather all the information, so the marketing information, all the inbound and outbound data, also direct information coming right from the CMS. And they put all this information in what they call is the customer journey database. And a lot of vendors out there are doing something similar. And if they haven't started yet, they will be soon. This is, I'm sure, what they'll talk about in the upcoming segment in predictions is that is what's coming is, more and more data being able to put concrete results together. So, but I think the way Sitefinity is doing this different than the other big guys out there right now is they're using reverse engineering. So what that means is the marketer doesn't have to have their personas perfected and their content strategy in place before they begin. They can just turn it on. They turn it on, they start gathering data, and then they can make predictions and assumptions from those concrete results. And it takes out a lot of the guesswork.
So Amy, give us, in your opinion, some differentiators for Sitefinity. How do they stand out compared to their competitors?
Yeah, so I think the biggest one, how they stand out, and kind of everyone knows this right now, is their acquisition with Progress. Now that they have incorporated with such a big established company, it's helping them in a lot of ways. They're able to tap into these Progress tools and get support very easily. Their company, what critics are kind of saying right now is now their company is actually looking, very well established, especially for Gartner. If you look in the last year, critics have all been saying, look at where they started, now look at where they come in the last year. They placed themselves nicely in the Magic Quadrant, so that's definitely helping them out. Another way that they stand out is they're very agile. They're an easy-to-use program. And Sitefinity has 3 markets that they serve. One is the marketer, one is the developer, and one is IT. Now, the marketer really wants change. The developer really wants a challenge. And the IT really wants no change. They just want it to be stable. So they want it to be agile so that all their markets were happy. So really what's happening now is the marketer is able to jump in and make changes by themselves. They don't always have to go to development to create a form or a new button. They can actually jump in the back end and do it themselves. And what that does is it opens doors for the developer. Now they can focus on the bigger challenges that they really want to focus on, and makes IT happy. Everyone else is happy. There's, everyone's stable, no change. And then the other way that they stand out is personalization. If you look at their latest version, the 8.2 that just came out about a month ago, they're really focusing on how can they make it easier for the person to incorporate personalization. How do they, when you're doing personalization, it comes in a lot of ways. It's hard work. You have to figure out who you're personalizing with, who you're personalizing to, and how that fits into your infrastructure. So they've put in some new widgets, some new drop-downs, preview mode, and kind of some new analytics to really help with personalization, make that a lot easier.
So Amy, let's talk about some of the biggest challenges that Sitefinity is facing right now.
Yeah, number one is to get their name out there. They've just been purchased by Falcon-Software not too long ago, about a year ago. And so that's one of their biggest challenges. They want to tell everyone about the acquisition, but also the changes that are going to be happening. Number two is to really, stay ahead of transition that is happening in the industry. If you look at where they're at right now, IT and development used to dominate this industry. And now marketers are getting much bigger budgets to have, more say, make more decisions, and assess solutions. So they need to try to stay ahead of that curve, but not leave the developer behind. And then the last one is they are struggling with, this marketing appetite. All marketers and all their, partners and all the customers they're dealing with, they all want all the marketing toys. And I totally understand about this because everything is just so shiny and new and you want to get in there and you're going to have ROI. But if you don't have the resources and the manpower and the things in place to actually get results, there's no point. So they have to challenge each one of their customers that want everything and say, look, do you have everything in place to actually make this happen? And that can be challenging because, sometimes your clients don't want to hear the truth like that. So that's what they have to do sometimes.
You're watching the Vendor Spotlight segment here on this edition of CMS Connected. Amy Martyn from Falcon-Software is reviewing Sitefinity. And Amy, like a lot of companies in the CMS space, we're talking about Sitefinity, Telerik, Progress. Sitefinity has been acquired. And so when it comes to partners, talk about some of the concerns they might have, or said a little differently, you've been researching this company, you've been talking to people in the industry. I'm sure partners are saying, well, how's this product, how's their solution going to be affected? Should partners be concerned?
Yes, and that is a concern right now. People in the industry are talking about that. So what that's doing is that's making Progress and Telerik, they're in conversations right now as we speak, trying to figure out what they're going to do. Everyone that's gone through an acquisition knows that change normally does happen. So, and Sitefinity realizes that the partners that they have in place are great partners. They want to continue that support and even better that support. But then if you look at the Progress side, they really know what they're doing when it comes to partners. They have a rich partner history. They are able to enable their partners even better. So I think change is definitely going to be happening, but I really hope it's just for the better.
And finally, let's finish up with a couple of questions, Amy. Progress is more of a Java background, and Telerik is more of a .NET background. So how are they going to bridge the gap between the two development worlds now?
Yeah, in the past, that really has been the way. It's been kind of separated like that. But recently, in recent years, Progress has been now selling, if you talk to the dev side, they have been selling both .NET and Java. So that's kind of already bridging the gap on their side. And then I have a quote here from Robert Matson, who is the Director of Product Marketing with Telerik Sitefinity. And he quotes, "They are not changing who they are. They have built a strong platform in the .NET world. However, they stand behind being an organization that meets the needs of developers, whether it's .NET or Java. They are going to do whatever they need to do."
All right, Amy, let's look into your crystal ball. Where does Sitefinity see themselves 3 years from now? If you know that, I want to go to Vegas and you can bet for me, okay?
Yeah, totally. We'll play roulette.
All right.
So they really want to, incorporate. This is a lot of vendors out there right now. They want to be at the forefront of digital transformation for their customers. And I think, they made a good point by talking about where digital transformation is at right now. A lot of people think it's happening, it's, we're in it, it's A to B, it's done, but it's not. It is just the beginning. And companies are just starting to incorporate in digital transformation. So they recognize it's not A to B, it's an ongoing thing, and it's changing all the time. So they really want to incorporate with Progress, utilize all the tools, and be at the forefront of digital transformation for their clients the next 3 years.
Falcon-Software's Amy Martyn and our Vendor Spotlight segment. Amy, as always, thanks for your time.
Thanks for having me.
All right, stick around, everybody. Coming up, predictions for 2016 as Alan Pelz-Sharpe rejoins us on this edition of CMS Connected.
Your job is to cut through the noise. To succeed, you need to reach out to your target audiences in real time with messages that speak to them. You can't let technology get in the way of your brand. That's the spirit. First Spirit is a powerful solution that helps you effectively communicate and engage with your target audience. Get an awesome ROI. Success in the market means your message got through to the right people at the right time in the right way. And that's why you need First Spirit. Get started with digital marketing. Visit www.espirit.com now.
Welcome back to CMS Connected. I'm Butch Stearns. Alongside is Alan Pelz-Sharpe of Digital Clarity Group. Time now to look ahead to 2016. Your crystal ball, you've dusted it off. Is it an optimistic picture?
No. I'll do the best I can. I'll try and find some optimism in there.
All right, so let's look ahead to 2016. Okay. You did a great job recapping 2015. We had tons of mergers and acquisitions. We had buzzwords that are taking on more significant meaning, if not new meaning, big data, the Internet of Things. Yep. We had the Gartner Magic Quadrant and the Forrester Wave, which of course will be coming up again this year, and how the players move in that industry. Let's start with mergers and acquisitions for 2016. Some predictions. What types of mergers and acquisitions, or specific ones, do you see that might shake up the industry or shape this industry for 2016?
Oh, I think there's going to be a lot this year. I think private equity is going to come in and do some buying up because there's a lot of bargains there, do some consolidation. So certainly at the lower end, if I can call it that, in terms of price, there's going to be a lot. I mean, there's a lot of people out there looking for a buyer, and fortunately, there's quite a lot of buyers out there looking for something to buy. At the higher end, I think that's where it gets interesting. You know, does Documentum spin out of EMC/Dell? What's going to happen at HP, right? So Interwoven and all those WCM and digital marketing assets didn't actually stay with the software group. It went off with the printer division. So sounds like maybe they're getting polished up to be spun out as well. And there's some good stuff there. It's interesting. Similarly, we mentioned before, I think Microsoft may well make a buy themselves, or maybe two. Oracle certainly isn't stopping spending money. It will never stop spending money. So I think there's just going to be a lot of activity. Which are the key ones? For the document management side, obviously it's Documentum, what's happening there. That's key. But I think, oddly enough, I will stick with the HP thing. It's the granddaddy of them, Interwoven. It was there right at the beginning. It's still there. A lot of people are still using it. I think that's going to be the bellwether. If that goes well, that's good for the industry.
Let's talk about a merger that has been talked about a little bit. The possibility of Sitecore and SharePoint. Could that happen? And if that did happen, what would that mean for the industry?
Oh, it certainly could happen. I mean, I think if Microsoft was going out and asking, myself or any other analyst, well, who should we buy? Sitecore would have to be on the short list and very high up it. I mean, it's an obvious fit. They've done well, they're Microsoft-centric, etc. So I think that's a given. I mean, the danger with a Microsoft is, and they've done this so many times in the past, they've gone down that road, clearly they're going to buy something, and then they suddenly say, oh yeah, we built one. And gosh, doesn't it look a lot like that one that was out there doing really well? I mean, they've got the resources to do that. We've seen them do it so many times before. I would think with the new management there, they're more likely to make a buy. Sitecore's not the only player in there. There's others, but I mean, it's got to be, they've got to be the favorite.
All right, as we look ahead for predictions for 2016, momentarily, I want to get to the Gartner Magic Quadrant and the Forrester Wave and some predictions from you on that. But let's talk about Adobe briefly, because despite the fact, in my opinion, that Sitecore, was leading the Gartner Magic Quadrant in 2015, Adobe is still sort of the player, right? They made more money. They offer a solution that works for the majority of people in the industry, right? What do you see for Adobe in 2016? More of the same?
More of the same, but I think more challenge as well. I mean, I think,
From competitors?
Yes, definitely. I mean, Adobe's had a good run, and they've done very, very well. There's no two ways about it. No, can't question that. But, you've got Salesforce, you have Oracle. They're not just going to stand idly by and watch this happen. And I think it's going to become a tougher competitive marketplace for Adobe at that higher end against players who are looking at what they're doing, saying, well, we can do that. And guess what? We can maybe even do more than you. So that's going to liven up.
So when it comes to the Gartner Magic Quadrant or the Forrester Wave, again, last year, 2015, we saw that Gartner revealed that Sitecore was at the top of it. What do you expect Gartner to reveal this year? Or what would blow your mind if they did?
What would blow my mind is if they actually consolidated some of those magic quadrants and
revealed how they actually come up with it.
That would be cool. But I mean, the fact is these things have got a life to them, right? I mean, so I don't know. What would really blow my mind would be if there were major changes on it. I think realistically, the industry just doesn't change at a high speed. So I think this year's is going to be much like last year's.
How about new players? Would you expect any new players to make it into the Gartner Magic Quadrant or even get some attention from the Forrester Wave?
I think so. I mean, whether it's for pure WCM, CMS, whatever we want to call it, or whether it's broader digital marketing, certainly there are a lot of players out there who have things now. I don't know exactly what the inclusion criteria is, but I think you'd have to look at something like a HubSpot and say, well, a lot of people are using that for digital marketing / CMS because it's got all that stuff in there. Why aren't they on that? You know? So again, what exactly is the inclusion criteria? I don't know, but if I look at the market as a whole, there's a lot of people who have CMS functionality and are doing very well with it, but they might not call themselves a CMS player.
Alan Pelz-Sharpe of Digital Clarity Group is joining us here as we're looking ahead to 2016 in the CMS industry. Alan, let me talk about a trend that's been documented and tell me your thoughts about this. With the mobile media consumption numbers tipping the scales at 51% mobile compared to 42% desktop, will we see a continued trend of consumer apps being developed for mobile first? Isn't that trend going to go up?
Yeah, it probably will go up, but I think like any kind of trend, it has its moment of heat, and then suddenly there's a bit of a sobering period where you think, well, maybe we got overheated here. I mean, the reality is there are apps that work really well on mobile, yeah? And there are apps that don't work so well on mobile. If you really want some detail on something, guess what? Even my 16-year-old daughter flips open a laptop and starts typing, right? She wants detail. So there's a world for both of them. It's not one or the other. I think that's what people are finding out. Plus, technically, we've moved from a position where it was really hard to develop apps for mobile. It's really quite easy today.
Right.
So, yeah, will there be more? Of course there will, but the desktop, the laptop, the bigger screen is not going away. It has its role.
So you're saying for 2016, when it comes to the CMS industry specifically, the trend to keep the customer in mind here and to design apps that work there first will continue to go up, but you're sort of painting a picture that maybe you shouldn't be so focused that that is the end-all be-all. Right?
You can't be completely focused on one thing. I mean, if we look at digital marketing, we use that word digital, absolutely important. Print is still huge, right? It's really important in the world. It's enormous. You know, billboards still actually sell things. So, I mean, in the real world out there, the world outside of ours, you know, people have to make some decisions, and mobile isn't the whole story. There's more to it.
So again, when it comes specifically to the CMS industry, the industry was born with the desktop first mentality, and that's just because of the evolution of devices and the mobile part of it, right? What about companies that continue with that desktop first? Most industry analysts would say they're going to fall way behind if that's the case. You seem to be saying, no, that's not necessarily the case. There is a time where you should be thinking desktop
Well,
first.
I think they've got to take a balanced approach and look at what their customers are doing with their technology, okay? So if we take advertising, mobile advertising, it's really irritating. I don't know about you, but if I get another thing flash up on my phone, I'm throwing it out the window, right? So it's actually a lot easier to advertise on a desktop. It's very difficult to do that because of the screen size, the real estate you have there. There's challenges here, and so the industry that we're in, our CMS industry, has to respond to the needs of marketers. And it's all very well talking about digital marketers. Most of them today are marketers. What do the marketers want? And you've got to respond. And it's not just mobile applications.
All right, as we look ahead to 2016, it seems like for the last 10 years, we've been saying this in every industry, video. But when we come to 2016 in the content management industry, let's talk about, again, video and its effect for this year in the CMS industry specifically. It's table stakes still, isn't it? I mean, we got there last couple of years that it's table stakes, or is it? Where are we at with video if you're in the CMS industry? Don't you need it? Don't you need to start with a video-centric philosophy?
I don't know if you have to start with a video-centric philosophy, but you're right, it's becoming more of the mainstream. Actually, if you go outside the US, if you go outside of Europe, it's quite amazing how video-centric, you know, Southeast Asia is, for example. You go to South Korea, it's very, very, very video-centric. So that is a happening thing, for sure. but it brings on a lot of challenges as well, right? It's easy to type up, relatively easy, to type up a paragraph explaining a product. Do that on a video and keep somebody's concentration, you know? I mean, again, it's those challenges. It comes back to the mobile thing. I can sit here and read, I can skip. That's hard to do on video.
Well, I agree with your point, but again, you've done a great job here, both in 15 and 16, talking about reality. So let's talk about reality. Every platform in the world now has a video component to it. Facebook Live, video on Twitter, Periscope, Blab, Instagram, Vine, or YouTube. I mean, YouTube, of course, is the #2 search engine in the world. So the ability to use video in the CMS industry is there, and gone are the days where you have to hire a company and spend $20,000 on a video. You could pick up your phone and have a 21-year-old make you a video and post it instantly. So again, how is that changing the CMS industry? How will it change things business-wise in 2016 with more proliferation of both the platforms and solutions that can provide video and the need for customers to want to have video?
Well, it's two things in there, the need, right, and the business. You're right, anybody can now produce a video and post it, right? We could do that with my phone now, and seconds later it's on the interwebs, right? It's out there. It's probably a really crappy video. I mean, so again, there is still a need for quality, and a good marketer wants quality. Volume alone doesn't sell. Okay, and so people have to be very careful where they're investing here. Is the technology available for them to do it? Absolutely it is, right? But what are you actually going to do with it? It's the same as the big data thing, right? The technology's been available for a long time. We've got great analytics tools. But what questions do we actually want to ask that bring a return? So, yeah, I mean, there's going to be more video. Is it going to become the mainstream, or not, maybe I shouldn't say the mainstream, but is it going to become the dominant form of communication? Possibly. But people are still struggling with, how do I sell something with this?
Right. So the business end of it. So let me make another statement when it comes to video, because I'm pretty passionate about this, and tell me if you agree with this. If we're speaking to the vendors out there, you painted a picture in 2015 that a key word is consolidation. So again, that comes to video. Your platform, your solution may not be as efficient with video as it needs to be. So you need to make that leap in 2016, right? So you need to make it easy for your customers to do that. There are all kinds of ways for you to do that. But quality of the video is defined, well, in my opinion, well beyond just the production quality. Sure. Someone walking down the street in New York with an iPhone, while that quality of the video might not be the old school agency that spent a ton of money to put all these bells and whistles, it could be real time. It could, again, from a vendor standpoint, your customers have the need, the want, and the desire to reach consumers 360-degree, where they want, when they want. So what does video and its components, as an example, mean for the CMS industry in 2016?
Well, for the CMS industry, I mean, it's really hard. Obviously, you picked this up about me. It's all about the money. It's all about getting things done, right?
As it should be.
As it should be. I 100% agree. But I mean, the reality is e-commerce. That's where it's at for video, right? I mean, I've got to sell something. Just churning out marketing is not where it's at these days. E-commerce is going to be huge in 2016, even bigger 2017. We've got a lot of e-commerce vendors out there who are first time round, they're very dated, there's great opportunities for people. And again, tie that to a digital asset management system that can store and manage and stream really good technology, really good video, really good images, etc. Tie that, I believe, might disagree with you, with good production and decent lighting.
Yeah, I'm not. Believe me, I was born in the video industry, so I'm not downplaying the people that want to do great video production. I'm just saying, just like I'm going to your business sense. I'm saying in the CMS industry that the quality should be defined by KPIs in your business.
Yes.
What are the conversions? You know, the video you think and I are great. If nobody's watching it, if nobody's clicking on you to buy, what good is it? It was money not well spent. Conversely, it could be a piece of crap as far as we think, but if people, it's getting thousands of people to watch and they're driving you to the page and your call to action is to get conversions,
but
then that's different.
I think there's two things there. You said about the KPIs, 100%, right? If I get 10 people to watch my video and 5 of them buy, that's a damn good video, right? If I get
50% conversion.
Yeah, if I get 500,000 to watch it and all hit the "this stinks" button, it's not so great, okay? So again, no, is this happening? Absolutely. There's a lot of digital asset management vendors out there, very cheap. Some of them are going to get bought up. It's going to happen. But you still have to get back to what's the business case? how do I actually make some money out of this?
All right, let's wrap it up for predictions for 2016. Back to what we saw in 2015, Alan. You commented on omni-channel digital experience across the full customer journey and how strides were taken in 2015. And you mentioned e-commerce. What are some of the trends you see in 2016? Because that's not going away. That's only growing exponentially.
Well, you know, finish where we started, consolidation. I mean, we've been building out bigger and better platforms. That's going on. That doesn't happen overnight, right? You cannot acquire 6 companies and suddenly go, wow, now I have a marketing cloud, as some people try to do, right? It's not as simple as that. It's really hard work, but you can do it. So again, I've mentioned the Oracles, the Salesforces, the Microsofts, the IBMs, the Adobes, right? These are big players with big pockets, and they are building out very sophisticated platforms to do the kind of work we've been talking about today, giving you that insight into the customer, providing it in whatever format, providing it through whatever channel, measuring it beautifully and perfectly. But that's hard. You can't fix that overnight. That's a 5-10 year cycle we're going into, but we're in it now. 2015 was a turning point. We're here. It's going to happen, but it takes a lot longer than people think. So
let's sum up your predictions for 2016, if I hear you correctly.
Okay.
I look back at 2015, and it was a huge year for mergers and acquisitions. Thus, heading into 2016, you expect even more than that,
absolutely.
And the key word is consolidation.
Yeah.
So let's talk from a vendor standpoint, and let's talk from their customer standpoint. The customers, as you keep saying, and rightfully so, they don't necessarily want to build or buy a CMS solution. They want to solve business problems. Right. So now go right to the vendors for 2016. All those trends, what does this mean for vendors? How do they keep up with customers' demands? How do they help their customers solve business problems? It's not necessarily building a more comprehensive platform or solution, is it?
No, in fact, in some cases, it will actually be stripping back to simple, really basic items in your platform and exposing those. So, I mean, the best advice I can give to anybody is look at that big mid-market. You've got too many small players trying to, get their foot in the door at GE, at Ford, right? Forget the Fortune 500. Look at that massive mid-market. Do something in there. Find a niche in there. It can be the lumber industry. It can be the paper cup industry. I don't know. Find a niche in there. Fix their problems, you're going to have customers who are going to be very happy for life.
And finally, again, you were born and raised in the technology industry. You've watched trends for many years. You get people to argue with you about some of your predictions. I bet if we look back, you were right on a lot of them and said, I told you so to a lot of people, and maybe wrong on a few too, right?
Maybe.
Look ahead to 2016. Yeah. This is a real broad question, but what technology trends are we going to see in 2016? We already talked about video and mobile platforms and all this and that. What trends are we going to see that are going to affect the CMS industry specifically the most? What technology trends are we going to see in 2016?
I think there's 2 sides to this one. So, I mean, in terms of actual technology, e-commerce, digital asset management, there's going to be a lot more happening around that. So that's one simple thing. I think the bigger thing is I think our CMS industry as a whole is becoming embraced by a bigger industry called digital marketing. And now we basically have CRM-centric, e-commerce-centric, data-centric approaches. They've got to find their place in it. But if I have to pick one big trend, it's those big guys, the Oracles, the IBMs, the Microsoft. They're gonna come and bite because it was too small for them before. It's lucrative now.
So keep an eye on what they're gonna do.
Absolutely.
Do you have one bold prediction for 2016? Either a specific company or big year for Alan Pelz-Sharpe in 2016?
Well, I hope so. Big year for Digital Clarity Group, definitely. No, I don't know if there's a bold prediction. I think, as I said before, I think there's going to be a lot of M&A, and I think some of those are going to be eye-opening.
Alan, great information. Great hanging with you today. We're never going to get inside the sausage factory, so you can forget about Gartner, and they're not going to tell us how they come out with the quadrant. No. That's the secret sauce for them,
It's magic.
Right? It's magic. Yeah. Alan Pelz-Sharpe of Digital Clarity Group. I'm Butch Stearns. This has been CMS Connected. Those are our predictions for 2016. We'll be joining you next time. To follow the conversations for CMS Connected, you can follow it on Twitter, #CMS Connected. Before we go, I'd like to thank Amy Martyn for her vendor spotlight on Sitefinity, and also thank our sponsors, Falcon-Software and Digital Clarity Group. So on behalf of Alan Pelz-Sharpe, Amy Martyn, and others, I'm Butch Stearns. We'll see you next time on CMS Connected.
Your job is to cut through the noise. To succeed, you need to reach out to your target audiences in real time with messages that speak to them. You can't let technology get in the way of your brand. That's the spirit. First Spirit is a powerful solution that helps you effectively communicate and engage with your target audience. Get an awesome ROI. Success in the market means your message got through to the right people at the right time in the right way. And that's why you need First Spirit. Get started with digital marketing. Visit www.espirit.com now.